Here we go. Patrick versus Nelson. Maya's brother Nelson. Patrick opens with e4, and we have the Sicilian. I think the idea is that, fight for the center here, and wow, pieces flying off the board. Both sides prepared for this, know what to expect. Played this line before, and a lot of pieces being traded really quickly. So let's take stock of where we are. Black's queenside pieces are gone. Maybe leaving black, a little bit vulnerable. White's kingside pieces are gone. White's ready to castle. Black's striking back with an attack here. Queen has to fall back. Knight's got a nice square that it likes here on d5, but Black Knight has good coverage of it. All right, and indeed, this is called an outpost, right? Because there's no pawns on the adjacent files that can kick that knight out of there. The problem is White's probably just, or sorry, Black's probably just going to take this. Say, I don't want you to have the outpost. I don't like you being there, and force the trade. Then White either recaptures with the queen or the pawn, and the outpost is kind of not usable at the moment. So that's, I think, what Nelson is trying to decide right now. Does he want to trade, or is there something else going on? And he notices that the pawn on e4 isn't protected and captures that, and that significantly weakens the outpost position. It's still good for White, but it's easier to push that piece around. At the moment, the only piece that can push it around is this knight, so maybe if you could trade that knight off, you could have an uncontested knight on this square. The problem is that you really miss the pawn anchor. If you try and anchor it from the other side, black can kind of attack that, kick that out. Okay, Black protects the knight. The knight was under attack here, and what next? In this position, the position's pretty equal. Okay, so White, trying to kick the knight out. This is interesting. The knight kind of goes to a square where it can challenge the knight on d5 from two sides. I think probably a good idea to do so. White should be thinking about castling. Decides to defend the pawn, or defend the knight, or anchor the knight in. Black can still kind of undermine that pretty well just by playing b5 here. It's not really a sacrifice, and White's king isn't safe yet, so maybe it's okay to kind of open the position up. Now both sides preparing to castling. Preparing to castle should be top of mind for both of them. Need to get those kings to safety. This kind of wastes time, leaving the king in the center. I think not ideal. Okay, I guess White was maybe targeting a pawn here. This seems to respond to a phantom request here, a phantom attack here, and it weakens the dark squares around the king. The king wants to castle into this direction. The bishop's outside. I mean, normally you'd put the bishop on g7 if you were going to play this move, and now this move looks interesting. I mean, it doesn't work because the bishop is there, but maybe maybe you can distract the bishop, maybe you can find a way to make it work. One idea was maybe bishop c2, just attacking the rook and then closing off part of the back rank. Okay, black attacking the c4 pawn, which with the b4 pawn being so far advanced, it's going to be hard to defend it. You can't really push it because you walk into a lot of pieces that have control of that square. And so, how are you going to, I guess you bring out a rook to defend it. White also has a lot of control over f4, can play this f4 move. If black takes, you can take with the knight takes, rook takes, and you have, you've kind of won some pressure on the king side here. I think rook c1 was a reasonable response to defending this. Nelson, slight advantage on the clock, but drops the fork. The bishop moves, and Patrick sees it immediately. And this could win the game. This could be it. The king has to move, and the queen is going to fall. That knight was just waiting for that bishop to move. And yeah, exactly. Problem with, there's problem with that tactic staying around on the board so long is that eventually you can forget about it and leave the defense of it. We go back to this g6 move. This g6 move weakened the f6 square and kind of created the whole setup for white to do this kind of fork. All right, so we're waiting for game 2 to start. Great game. Nelson resigns in this position. It definitely, against a tough opponent, it's going to be hard to fight on from this point. The king moves, queen goes down. What do you even do from here? Now a move like f4 is even stronger because the bishop is on the same diagonal as the king. If the knight takes, you can take back with the rook, and the pawn can't even capture. Yeah, definitely tough place to be in. You could even look like knight captures, pawn takes, queen takes, check, and I guess the bishop can block, so maybe you have to get rid of the knight first, but this is a tough position to come back from. Okay. Just gonna ping Patrick here and ask if he's playing another game. He says he is playing another game, so we should see it start shortly. Okay, here we go. And we have the Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit declined, not taking the pawn. As we all know, that pawn isn't always free. So, okay, maybe you want to block this pin. White's pinning the knight. You want to cut that off as quick as possible. Patrick now playing with the black pieces. Okay, so this now you have to retake with the queen. You get some early queen development, could be okay. Pinning the knight. The knight was trying to attack the square here, so pinning it. Getting development for the bishop, or preparing development for the bishop. Now if you capture, the bishop comes out. Black probably just wants to castle here. There's no immediate need to take this. You prefer to leave the pressure of the pin. Yeah, castling is the best move here. There's no immediate threats, no immediate need to take that, so that's not bad, it's just not necessary. And okay, again, Patrick should be castling in this position. So we see that he likes to favor piece development rather than king safety. And sometimes you can make that work. In the last game, it definitely worked out well for him. But you know, against a strong attack, it could potentially cause some problems. Yeah, white should, I don't know, maybe play. Okay, so it's black's move right now. Black should castle. Yeah, I guess white might maybe has some ideas of pushing this. Okay, both sides castle, getting kings to safety. This makes a lot of sense. It's really good. Black might be interested in playing that, or white might be interested in playing. It's okay. White captures, has to capture back, and then attacks the pawn again. And you could probably just take it. It kind of gives the bishop room to go, but the problem is if you don't take it, I don't know. Like, okay, so now takes is okay as well. This is good. Yeah, you can also develop a rook, get things kind of going. Okay, I like that the bishop is pointed at an important square of the king. You can think about this, about lining this up. It sort of doesn't work now because white's lining up their own idea. Maybe with the bishop coming out, it's not very threatening at this point. But you know, maybe something. It does kind of pin down the knight to the position. The knight can't really wander away because the pawn on c7 behind it falls. Okay. Black getting the rooks to the semi-open files, not a bad idea. It's they can't do a whole lot because the white has good center control with this pawn chain here, keeping black from getting a lot of activity. Queen is very active now. You can't really bring this over because, well, I guess the knight guards it, but yeah, the bishop is under attack right now, so you have to do something with the bishop. I guess you can bring the rook over to defend the bishop. You could try and trade off the queens. The problem is it isolates one of your pawns. You end up with a pawn in the center here by itself. It's not ideal. I don't mind this so much. Yeah, white's got good development here. The center control seems to be working out well. So Nelson's also a minute and a half up on time. So he's definitely doing well this game. Yeah, 92 threatens the bishop, forces it to move again. You can't go back where you were. You can't go anywhere on over here. You know, so your options are going back to some squares or defending the piece. He chooses to defend it, and that's okay. But White is getting some really sneaky attacks here, trying to trade off the pieces, and the queen is just annoying enough on this spot. The queen and the bishop here, not the knights isn't so much the target, but the pawns behind it can be a target. Queen e6, the best option to keep it defended. Probably, you know, one of the rooks is going to join the attack here afterwards, and then there's going to be a lot of pressure on the knight on c6. This knight's going to be highly pressured to move. He's got 3 attackers. You've only got 2 defenders after you move back, and once you move, the pawn behind it falls. So this is a really strong attack here from White. Definitely going to be hard to hold this all together. Okay, falling back and eyeing the pawn in the back, but this isn't going to save the pawns. White can just capture immediately, and after takes, White the queen immediately wins a pawn and kind of shatters the connectedness of the pawns on the queen side here. White going for the slow attack. You know, now, is there anything that can be done? You know, I don't think so. I think black's going to lose a pawn no matter what. If you move the piece, you lose one. Okay, so white, black trades queens, kind of reducing some of the pressure. And now black defends the other pawn in the attack here, and kind of saying that, like, okay, sure, you can take. I'll take back with the pawn. The rook takes the pawn, and you win. You win the pawn, but my rook's going to win the open file. That's exactly what happens. And you see now. Now black's got a decent piece here. Yeah, it goes right for the opponent's opposite file. Just giving up the pawn to try and get the access to the second back rank here. Bit of a gamble, but could work. Maybe. Wow. Okay, so this drops another pawn and gives lets the opponent have a check, but I think the idea here is to double up on the back rank. Okay, Patrick goes the other way, and White defends right away. Hard to know what to do here. I think maybe try and get to the back rank here. You might need to be behind these pawns. If White starts pushing these pawns, these passed pawns are going to be a huge problem. Yeah, okay, so and the problem is there's passed pawns on both sides here. Black needs to get behind all of them, and just to kind of have a chance here. The issue being is that white can bring the pawn all the way down, and then at the end, might be able to force it to queen. So tricky. I think this gives doesn't directly challenge white, but maybe tries to give the king some breathing room, try to get some counterplay. The king needs to maybe make his way to the d8 square to try and block some of the incoming attacks here, incoming pawns. The rooks need to get behind them. Problem is if you don't take over the d and the a file with your rooks, then white's rook is going to, and then it's going to be unstoppable. So yeah, you have to play this now. If white's rook gets behind it, I think it's game over. Yeah. Okay. So finally we get the pawn behind it, but there's a nasty tactic here, where you play rook h8, and it looks like you've abandoned the pawn, but if you take it, you play check here, the king has to move, and you win back the rook. So this is a common tactic for queening the pawn. White might not know it, and if white doesn't know that tactic of playing rook h8, then it can be difficult to see how to push the pawn and queen it. Probably I would put a rook behind your other pawn and start pushing your second pawn. The king move's a good one. Black can't get to the h4 pawn to guard it. Does sort of, I mean, this pawn's under defended, but you can't really take it because you would lose defense of this. Maybe a better move was rook c7, threatening to take it right away. Okay, black moving over to the other side of the board. If you can get a rook to h7 or h8, or I guess h7 right now, it's checkmate, but how do you do that? I mean, the rook can't fly. You might wish it could, but okay, pushing more pawns. I don't mind this. This is trying to break up the structure, the support of the pawns. These pawns are a lot weaker if you capture here. So as white, I would not capture this pawn. That's not a free pawn. It comes at the cost of breaking up the connected pawns. Better move here for white is just to push. Also, maybe bringing the rook over, come down, protect this pawn from the side so that you can move the other pawn out, other rook out, and queen. White does have to be careful here. You can't, if you move down, you walk into checkmate. Nobody's going to do that, but Patrick struggling to keep this game together, way behind, has lost all his pawns. There's, white took the pawn and busted up their pawn structure, so now these pawns are very weak. Patrick has definitely got some fighting chances here. He should really focus on taking out this this pass pawn, but white's position's not as good as it was a few moves ago. It's still winning, but it's not as easy now. The pawns can't support each other, so they're going to be easy targets for the rooks to pick off. I wouldn't necessarily go grabbing this pawn, because it's like it's like the least important pawn right now. Um, but yeah, I would play rook a6 here, maybe. Um, problem is Patrick is 18 seconds left, and it's going to be hard to find the right ideas. This allows rook f8, allowing the pawn to queen. So white's doing really well now. Promote to queen, rook takes. White's won the rook. Has 2 rooks against 1 for the rest of the game. It's yeah, we see it. Patrick needs to move at the speed of light. He's threatening checkmate in 1, but he's not going to get the chance to do it because white can rain in a hailstorm of checks here. And as long as every move is check, and that's checkmate, he's not going to go down. Which means we need to go to a tiebreaker match. Amazing. Nelson wins game 2. Patrick wins game 1. Tiebreaker. Okay. Sounds like they are just about ready to go. Intense game. It's going to come down to the 3-minute tiebreaker. These opponents are evenly matched. Nelson has a bit higher rating. So a slight favorite to win this. Okay, let me fix this. There we go. And we have the same line again, Scandinavian here. Wait, what happened? Yep. Okay. Maybe it's not the same line, but I feel like I just saw this. Okay, both sides playing quickly. Patrick 3 minutes on the clock. Nelson 3 minutes on the clock. Very symmetrical. Slight difference with the E and D pawns, but a lot of symmetry here. White making moves, fighting for the center. If knight takes, pawn takes back. It's not bad for white. It's not winning, but it's not bad. Knight has to move now. Now the bishops see each other. You have to decide what to do with those bishops. And probably need to capture it. I mean, you could defend it, but it doesn't work well because bishop captures, pawn takes, queen takes pawn, and you've given up a pawn. So you really just need to capture or move out of the way. I don't see a good spot for this bishop. I would think capturing it's the right idea. This doesn't work tactically because you've got 2 attackers and 1 defender now, and I think Patrick missed that. Pressure of the time is hard to deal with. Okay, threatening to capture the knight here, so knight moves with an attack on the queen. Looks like that move hit both, but okay, Patrick finds an idea, grabbing the pawn, hitting the knight and the pawn. Knight gets defended, pawn hangs, and black can play this though, brings the other way. You can't capture this pawn now, you have to move out of the way to one of these squares, probably the only 2 safe squares. And the pawn on b2 is going to fall now. This is kind of a common thing, is one side takes the b7 pawn, then the rooks come over, then the b2 pawn falls, or vice versa. Very, very common. But this is tactic. Oh, he plays it too fast. The capture of the pawn hung the rook, and it was hanging there for a second. You probably see they both see it now. Nelson moves the rook out of the way. Uh, Patrick needs to slow down just a little bit in tough positions. There's yeah, it's hard to know when to go fast and when to go slow here. Um, Black has well, both sides have a weak back rank, so there could be tactics at any point, like hitting from the diagonal here. Um, White drops a knight from maybe being a little too focused on trapping the bishop now, but this pawn falls. How'd that happen? Oh, we attacked the knight directly. Yeah. Okay. And now it's a yard sale again. Black has 3 strong pieces around White's king. It's going to be hard to. Yeah. Okay. He sees the back rank, but Nelson makes a luft here for his king just in time. King has an escape square now, and it's not going to be a checkmate on the back rank. I think Patrick now would love to trade some of his minute and a half for some of his pieces back, but it doesn't work that way. Okay, a lot of pieces under attack now. This a-pawn's going to fall. Yeah, we're just... King can't move forward anymore, so Black resigns. White resigns. And Nelson's the winner of our well-played match. Okay, let's go see the bracket. Okay. So, we had 2 wins from Nelson, 1 from Patrick. That means Maya's brother Nelson is going to move on and play Shmuel in the finals. Congratulations, well done, tough fought.